Hey everyone, this is Jim. I'm going to do another demo here using the App Machine Mobile Development Kit. I'm going to show you how to use web service calls. In particular, I'm going to show you how to read data from a data store. I'm going to show you how to write data to a data store, all using the App Machine Mobile Development Kit. I've been working with App Machine for probably 6 to 7 months now, and it was one of the only mobile development kits that I've seen that really has helped me go from zero to done within this 7 month period. You don't have to be an expert to use this. There's a lot of built-in stuff. But for those that actually have something that maybe already exists, maybe a website, and it has web services and you want to take advantage of those and build a mobile application with it, this product App Machine does an excellent job making this super easy to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is to actually create and invoke a web service to retrieve data. And after that, I'll show you how that we can use it to save some data. All right, so let's get started here. What I have here is a very blank application right now. There's not much here. I put a couple of blocks in here, social media and help. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a web service call to retrieve data from my backend. And I already have some code written on the back end that'll retrieve data, and we're going to invoke those. And mine returns JSON, which is perfect for App Machine. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you how this is done. So I'm going to click Block. I'm going to click Pro, Web Service. I want to add Web Service block, and mine is a custom web service. Here's all the options. If you're familiar with HTML, these are already pretty familiar. Since I'm going to retrieve data, I'm going to use the get. So here's my piece of code on my back end that I'm going to invoke when the user tries to go to this screen. Now, obviously, if I get my account, my back end has to know which account to get because there could be thousands of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it a parameter to help it identify the records I want to retrieve. I'm going to have a parameter called UID. And I could have called this whatever I wanted. I could have called it user, I could have called it username or whatever, and I can have multiple parameters passed, different data types. What I'm using here is a syntax of App Machine. If users, when they download their app, if you force them to register, it'll ask for an email address and a password. It will assign them a unique user ID, and I'm going to use that to pass to my web service call to tell me which record to receive, which account to go get. You could have lots of different ways to do this, but this is a pretty good way just because it's a unique value, so I know what I'm getting. After I've done this, I'm going to hit the go. And what it did is it invoked my web service. It called it and passed in that value of the user ID, and it returned the fields. Here's what my JSON returned, my web service call returned. Here's their data types, and again, I can change these if they're not correct. And here's an actual record value that it returned. Now this particular one only returns one row. If we had multiple rows, they would be horizontally across, all the value you'd see going across it. I think it'll do up to 5, it'll show at a time. But in this particular case, as we're updating or getting my account, it's really only one record. So now we hit next. Web service name, I'm just going to give it a service name, account service. This is just a name for service. You're going to have multiple services potentially, and so this will help identify this particular service. And this is the name of the screen, and I'll call it my account. This is what the users are going to see. And what you'll see is that App Machine has created 2 blocks. One of them is a list, you can see up here, and that's the actual web service invocation. And a list is a retrieval of 0 or more records, and then you can loop through each record. And then there's a screen block that's underneath it, and the screen is to show the details. Now the list initially will show just a header portion of some information. So let's say you're getting emails. Maybe you would return the subject, and you'd have like 20 subjects vertically showing, and maybe a date. And then you could click on one and go see the details, and you could scroll back and forth through them. But anyway, it creates 2 blocks, and I can see the fields here on my screen. And it also put the block down here at the bottom, which I don't want. So I'm going to move this up. With the little drag and drop, I'm going to pop that up to the top, and I can see it moved it up here on my screen, which is good. And literally, this is how you invoke a web service call to retrieve data. Now, the one thing you're going to notice is that, like I said, there's a couple screens. This particular web service call only returned one row. So I have the option, and App Machine's default is if there's only one row, don't show like the header piece, just because they only have one thing to click on. So you can either have it skip it or show it. In my case, we're going to skip it because, again, there's only one choice. There's one row. If there's multiple rows, again, like I said, I would want to see those vertical listing of the rows, just a short summary, and then I could click on it and see the details. So it's going to skip it and go right to the details. Now, the one thing we're going to do here is we're going to look at this. I click this, and what you'll see is pretty much every field here on the left that was retrieved, plus this thing called ID, and that's that user ID component. Well, I don't necessarily maybe want to show all these details. I certainly don't want to show the ID. I'm not sure how valuable that is to the user, so I may want to customize that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the detail screen, which happens to be the screen block. As you'll see, there's nothing here. But if I put something in here, that's when this list you can see on the right here will get tailored to whatever I actually copy and paste into here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe I'll show the email, I'll show the is active, and I'll show the state. Maybe that's all I'm going to show. I'll put labels on these, and I'll call this email address. And maybe I'll make the value bold. I can, I have some options here that I can change. I'm going to do is active, and I'll call this is my account active. And I'll make that one bold. And then I'm going to do, I'll just call this, I guess, state name. And then I'll make that bold. Okay. So now I've done this. I'm going to save my changes. Now what you're going to see is if I go back and I look at this again, I only see what I tailored, right? All that other stuff is gone. And I can see the values of the record. Perfect. In a nutshell, that's how easy it is to retrieve data using a web service call with App Machine. Again, super simple, really not much to it, a bunch of drag and drop. You just basically set up the block, make sure that you've called the right web service, and you can tailor it, and that's it. Pretty simple. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to actually save the data. So in a real life example, I've got my account. Well, I maybe want to change my email address, or maybe I want to change some other field, and then save it back to the data store. I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, so what we have right now is we have seen how to retrieve data from the data store with the web service call. And now I'm going to show you how to actually update and save that data back to the data store. So we're going to create another web service call, one that will save data, and we're going to see how that works. So the process is fairly similar. We're going to click Block, Pro, Web Service, Custom Web Service, and instead of a get, I'm going to do a post because I'm saving. Now, again, I'm going to update account, but I have to give it some values, right, to update. Just calling it by itself is fairly meaningless, so I have to kind of give it some information to help update it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a couple things here. I'm going to pass in UID again, and that's the user ID, which I've explained in the read call. Make that required. I'm going to do email, and here I'm going to make this an email field. And the nice thing about these fields is that now if I make it an email field, because it's an input field, for saving, the little .com will show up on the mobile device as a possible button you can click. If I made it numbers, it would just pop up just the number pad, the keypad. I'm going to do email. I'm going to do is account active, and then I'm going to do state choice. I'll just do that. So, and I'm actually going to make these all required. Now, you don't have to. If you do make them required, it'll show a little exclamation point and require the person to fill out the field. So anyway, these are the 4 things I'm going to pass to this piece of code. I'm going to click the Go button, which just validates that it actually can invoke the web service call. If there's interaction that needs to happen, like maybe there was something that happened in the back end, it wants to display a message, that can't happen here. The only thing that you're going to see is was it able to invoke the web service call or not. And so we're going to hit next. And I'm going to save this web service. I'm going to call update account service. Again, there's a list of services, and so I just want to identify this one in case I have to make changes or identify it. And this is the screen that the people are going to see. I'll just say update account. That's what it's going to be called. And what you'll notice is it put it down here. Now, I don't necessarily want it down here. I actually want it to be a child block of the My Account, because when I make it a child account or a child block, I have access to these fields that are right here that I've retrieved. So I can populate the screen with the values and allow them to change it and then save it. So what I've got here, and it's already kind of showing you, is if I were to go back here and I click My Account, what you'll see is it created another tab at the top called Update Account, which is the same as the screen name I've got. And if I click it, what I'll see is it has basically put every field down here. Here's the field from the service up in here, and it's made them all text fields. Now, a couple things wrong that can be fixed is that one is they're all text fields. Now, is account active, yes or no, or true or false, or something like that? I don't want them to have to type that in, so that's probably not a great choice. And states are typically list blocks. Not list blocks, drop-down list boxes where you'd have nice names and then some values. So I'll probably want to change these, and I also need to have them populated with the record. Like I said, I have access to this, so I want to actually put the email address of the record in there so they don't have to type it in. So we're going to do that next. So what we're going to do here is I can see these are all text fields. Now, I don't even want UID. I don't want them to see that. They don't have to see that. I've already defaulted it to the UID value, so I don't need to do that. So I've gotten rid of that one. Now I've got email as account active state, and then I've got a button to execute it. Now the email address, again, there's no value in there. You can kind of see over here. So what I want to do is first I got to go find the field. It's called email. That's the field that was retrieved from the web service call initially. So I'm going to populate that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, for the text, data email. Now what that'll do is it's going to populate it, and you'll probably see it populate over here. Kind of close the screen, so we'll go to look at it again. And there it is. All right, step one done. We're getting values put in here. So anywhere that has something that says text, I can put data colon and then give it a field. The problem is when you start picking some of these advanced controls, they don't have something that says text. So we got to do a little trick here. Now, like I said, I may not want a text field for the state, and I may not want one for is account active. So what I'm going to do is I'll first fix the is account active. I'm going to make that a switch. Switches take the value of true or false, and I know that's what's being returned from my web service. So I'm going to put a switch here. And what you'll notice is I don't have anything that says text or value or anything here that I can do, but I'm going to give it a label. I'm going to say is my account active, and I'm going to save that. And the thing is, like I said, is if you look at a text field, I've got this thing called text where I can put data something. So is my account active? Great, I've got a switch, but I want it to populate with the data. So if the data from my retrieval is, yes, the account is active, I want the switch to be on. If it isn't, then I want the switch to be off. So how do I do that? The field that from the read call that I need to populate that actually has the value is called is active. So what I need to do for a switch is I need to go into the source, and I need to do this. Value equals data is active. So it's exactly what I put in the other one, except I had to go behind the scenes in the source to do it. We'll do that, and I will come out of the source, and we'll take a look. Did it actually work? My account, update account, and the switch is on. Now, how do we validate that it didn't just accidentally pick the switch on and and it's really supposed to be off? Well, I can go to the get call, this block, and I can show the data. And I can see the is active is true. So the switch should be on, which is the case. So that's perfect. All right, now the other problem we've got is now I've populated the value, but only these columns, these fields from the update, they were initially dragged over here. Now the is account active is the is account active that matches here. It doesn't match the switch. So I need to bind the switch to the is account active field in the update call. And then eventually I'm going to get rid of this text field. So what I want to do is, how do I do that? This is a little tricky again. It took me a while to play with this, and I found this out by going back into the source. Now I've got a switch, and above it is the actual text field, is account active. Now in here, at the very end, I'll see this thing called binding. And this is the key to actually binding the switch to the modify web service call. What I need to do is go to the switch. I copied that value, and I'm going to paste it in here. And now the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get rid of the text field. I don't need it anymore. I don't need the text field is account active anymore because the switch has taken over all of the responsibility. It's using the value retrieved from the get service call and is now bound to the write service call. Hey, sorry about that. I had a little interruption, so I had to snip a little bit of the video out. Anyway, we've seen how we can write data, or at least use a switch box or an advanced control in place of the text fields that are placed in for a write service call, web service call. As you can see, all these things down here, if you were to drag them over, they would all end up text fields. If we want to change them, and when you drag them, they're all bound because they're already assigned to this web service call, which means I don't have to do anything. If I just dragged them over here, put a button save, I wouldn't have to do anything. If the user typed it in and changed it, it would all get passed back to the web service. But if I use a custom control, then I have to do a little bit of work because it isn't one of these text fields that are bound down here. So I have to go in there and tell it what to bind it to and what the value is. So let's do the same thing for the state. Now again, the state, typically you're going to have a drop-down list box. You don't want people typing a whole lot on a mobile phone. So we'll give them some choices and they can just select from those list of choices. So what I'm going to do, it's exactly the same as the switch. I'm going to create a drop-down list box. I'm going to put it right down here. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to call it state choices. Again, I'm just put whatever you want. It could just be state. And here I'm going to put some values. I'll put a couple here. I'll put Colorado, CO. I will put Arizona, AZ. I'll put Minnesota, MN, and Texas, TX. And I'm going to save that. Now again, so now I have a list of choices, but they're not going to, the values that are read in are not supplying or picking the right list, the list item. So we've got this thing called state, and I need to actually take that state value, whatever it is, and have it pick the right choice from the drop-down list box. So what I got to do is I got to go into the source. Now this thing's called state. I go into the source. I got to find the list box. Here it is right here. I'm going to put value equals data state. That's the name of the field from the read call. And so now the value will be picked correctly. But like I said before, what won't be done is it isn't bound to the write call. And so if I go find the input state choice, this was the text field that was used by the write service call, and I go to the end, there's the binding. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to copy it, go back here, and here's my drop down. I'm going to bind it to the same thing, and now I don't need the text field for the input state choice anymore. So now for the drop down list box, I'm giving it the value of, from the read call, the record, the state value, and I'm going to bind it on the write call to the state choice column. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's take a look here what we've got. Let's take a peek. Alright, so let's see if it all worked. Let's take a peek here. Go back to the main screen here, my account. Go to update account. I can see the switch, and I can see the list box which was chosen. Pick the right value. So it looks like it all worked. Now, one thing you might be asking yourself is, you know, I went in there and I showed you one way on how to do it by going in here and I drag this over and then I go look at the source. If you ever wanted to know what data provider this and data provider that is, which data provider that you're going to use, well, one thing you can do is do what I did, which is you just drag over a field from that service and then look at the source. The other thing you can do is you can just go to the developer page. And the developer page has a list of services, and I can see the get account service is data provider 43. I can also see the update account service is data provider 46, and this is my write service call, so this is the stuff I have to bind to. So whenever I'm saying binding for this particular service, I'm going to say data provider 46, and whatever the field name is, I want to bind it to. And if I ever want to find the fields, I can go into here and I can click the input value, and here's the field. So data provider 46 email, data provider 46 is account active. data providers, 46 state choice, etc. So that's how you go through and you do this. So it's not too bad. A little bit of work just to, when you're using custom controls to kind of match things up and get it to work. But all in all, once you figure that out, it's actually fairly easy to use, and you're good to go. You can write yourself some good custom web service calls and a decent mobile application. Hope you've learned from this exercise, and good luck.